What's up, guys? Ryan Schultz here from E39 Source. We're outside the shop Friday night, racing the sunset here. I wanted to get this short video filmed on this 2004 545 before it's delivered to its owner and my client tomorrow in San Clemente, California. So 2004 545, we took this in last summer. It has been here a long time, and with the help of some local sublets, we've taken this from a car that hasn't run for years, that had an engine rebuild, into a car that's now ready to be daily driven, that's ready to hit the canyons, that's ready to go sit in the LA traffic, that's ready to do a little bit of everything. And it got a little bit of a bath and a spray wash, or a spray wax rather, and it's just looking incredible in this pre-twilight kind of light here. And this is not your typical 2004 545. There's been a lot of upgrades, improvements, and modifications made to this car that I think make it exceptionally unique. There is not another E60 in North America, not another E60 in the world that is quite configured the way that this one is. So on the outside, we see that it's a jet black pre-LCI E60 545. Now we've got some Dynon wheels. These are the M5 size tires, so we're at a 245/35 ZR19, and I believe the back's to be 285/35 ZR19. We look in there, we see some M5 brakes. Look at those M5 brake rotors, and it's more than that. It's axles, it's rear subframe, it's differential, it's control arms, the whole rear end out of an E60 M5. We look up front, we see the same M5 big cross-drilled rotors and M5 calipers. We notice a few modifications on the outside. We've got some tasteful window tint. There's E60 M5 side mirrors. We'll come around back, not too close to the bushes, and on the other side we will see the Dynon exhaust, which is the Dynon muffler. Not too loud on this car, no drone, no buzz, not noticeable on the highway. Just a fantastic, more aggressive than stock little growl on startup and idle. We'll get a listen here in a few minutes. Most of the modifications are found inside the car, so let's take a peek. And I know I'm gonna forget things. I'm gonna kick myself for it later. There's just so much going on with this car. Let's start down here. BMW individual. We've got the individual door sills on all 4 points. We take a look at the interior, the door panel. This is an E60 M5 full leather door panel with the stitched Napa leather here, stitched merino leather down here and on the armrests. Really big upgrade over the standard 545, 550, standard E60 interior. And we look at the trim. This is high gloss black Steinway, like the piano company's Steinway trim throughout the entire interior. Dash, the console, that is a 6-speed manual transmission. This car started life as a soccer mom's car with the ZF 6-speed automatic, and now rocks the 6-speed manual. We did not do the complete conversion. This customer came to me over the summer and said, the car's been off the road for a few years. I've just had the engine rebuilt, the N62 TUB44, I believe, the 4.4 V8. It hasn't run for a few years, hasn't run since the engine start. I need help with the coding and the programming and the wiring for the transmission conversion. So we took the job on. I don't love to take on other mechanics' half-baked ideas, but we were able to get this thing running eventually. The engine builders had wired the starter motor to the back of the transmission. We had all sorts of problems there that needed to be rectified. The clutch pedal position sensor had not been wired, so we've since completed that. But back to what makes this car unique. So obviously the transmission conversion, all the coding and programming is done with that. We continue the full leather up there with the stitched leather dashboard. And look at this. The owner of this car has retrofit the heads-up display, the factory HUD. How incredible is that? Get a better look inside here. This is the BMW individual black Steinway piano style steering wheel with the wood inlay. This one has started to peel. Nothing to worry about. The owner sourced the last new one in the world and will be installing it upon receiving his car tomorrow. So that's going to look incredible. You also notice we're missing a shift boot. That's the only part of the conversion that hasn't been completed. The customer has a Alcantara shift boot to match the e-brake boot that he'll be installing. See a Dynon shifter in there, and this thing is one of the nicest shifters I have ever felt. Really just not too hard. I say notchy because it just falls into each gate perfectly. This is a really, really smooth transmission too. Some of these 6-speed boxes are a little rough, but this one's exquisite. He's customized this panel down here to include, obviously, the heated seat function. The seats in this car are out of an E60 M5. They're the ones with the adjustable little neck pillows there. And they have the active bolsters, I think the option is called, and that works on both seats, so there's another retrofit. DSC can be put into what I believe they call DTC mode, where if you press and hold it, you will get the full defeat of the system. Take a minute to appreciate the beauty of this ultra high gloss Steinway trim. Usually I don't like a black piano finish. This is just so deep ink black. It's absolutely beautiful. It's every piece on the interior. Another small modification we see are the LED light kits. We actually just put that in our own 2006 M5. Okay, maybe not all of them are done, but it brings a very nice, newer, clean, crisp, modern feel to a car that is somehow 18 years old. Let's take another peek at what I think, personally, is the coolest retrofitting or modification to this car. Soft closed doors on a 2004 545. Every single one of them works. Get a better look in the back seat, and I think these must be the Sport Contour seats, or BMW has some specific name for them, but they're the M5 seats that has the additional articulation kind of in the center, right at your shoulders. So you get this seam here in the seat. The backrest of the seat can kind of adjust like that, adding to creature comforts. So that means you have this piece of trim here, which somehow he found the Steinway black piano trim for that. That's a really nice touch. I actually love what that does for the back seat. So the M5 door panels continue back here. There's side sunshades. There is an Alcantara rear parcel shelf with a functioning electric sunshade in it. The headliner in this car is out of the M5, presumably that the seats and dash are out of. It's all Alcantara, the visors, A, B, C pillars, essentially the whole interior. Probably inclusive of the center console. And speaking of the center console, we have rear heated seats in a 2004 545i. I think the owner put this in here to mess with me because he knows I'll never be able to find another one of these again. This is the BMW individual 5 Series sedan touring an M5. I don't want to call it a brochure. This is a hardback book. It's all in German, which is unfortunate because I do not speak German beyond one piece and things you see all the time. This is one of the coolest things. It's just brand new condition and quality. Look at that. Anybody ever seen that? Those wheels. Did you know that the E60 has E39 grab handles? Completely unchanged. There's a fun fact. So we see some of the wood trim. We will eventually get to the Steinway trim. Very interesting interior spec there. I've certainly never seen that in person. In the States, pretty much all we have are white, silver, and black inline 6 automatic E60s with next to no options on them. It seems like people in Germany had much better taste. So here we have the wooden inlay on the individual steering wheel. There's those individual door sills. And wow, so it looks like an Alpine, some sort of a DVD monitor in the back of the seat, all wrapped in leather. The only negative there is you're going to lose a lot of legroom for the rear passengers. Boom, here's the Steinway. So you get the little guy on the piano, shows that high gloss. I think that would be a Mystic Blue E60. I have yet to see, or yet to service one of those. Some of them came with the SMG transmission, and I've done enough of these conversions now. Converting from SMG to manual is significantly easier in the wiring and coding and programming element than from the standard torque converter automatic to manual. That's kind of a different ball game. But nonetheless, it is doable. Nice kind of a sand beige, maybe. I don't know what they called it on the E60. Very unique color. Anyways, I won't waste, I don't think it's a waste, but I won't spend too much more time going through the book. Just lots of cool stuff. Like, is that some sort of an Alcantara, light Alcantara headliner in an E61 wagon? There has to be 2 or 3 of these cars worldwide that hopefully still exist somewhere. Just cool stuff. And then there's all your option codes, your trims, and vehicle colors. So that is blue onyx metallic. Never seen that. So many of you are probably wondering what took the whole fall and winter and deep into the spring here. Today is April 8th. to get this thing done. Well, we had a couple of weeks of the coding and the wiring and the programming and all of that sort of stuff, and the car's been off the road for so long, we kept running into issues of worn out control arms and various bushings throughout the car and items like that. And we finally got to a place where the car should start, and it didn't. So we did a whole bunch of work there trying to figure out why it wouldn't start. And eventually, as I mentioned, we found the starter motor to be unplugged and the wiring incorrectly run to the back of the transmission. So we fixed that, we got it running. It would run great for a few minutes, and then boom, the engine would get really rough, really lumpy, very poor idle quality. And it was always the same thing. It was, well, we started with like misfires on cylinders 2, 4, 6. So I'm checking grounds, I'm checking coils. We ended up replacing the plugs, replacing the coils. The engine shop somehow did not manage to do that during the rebuild. A bit questionable. So we took care of that. That improved things quite a bit, but we still had this misfire on cylinder 2. So eventually we decided to go ahead and put some new eccentric shaft sensors in it, and that involved opening up the head, where we then found a small rocker arm for the Valvetronic, a secondary lever, for cylinder number 2 on an intake valve. So cylinder number 2 was only running on one intake valve, which would certainly explain the misfire. So that was a sublet for us that required a lot of custom and kind of proprietary tools that I didn't want to invest in. I don't advertise that I service an N62, though of course I do. It's a BMW. We generally stick with M models, whether that be E39 or E60. Or M3s. But we did it, we sublet that, and then the car came back running very well. We got the old fuel out of there, we did a fuel pump, we did a fuel filter, we did the Venturi hose in the tank, we did a MAF. I know I'm gonna leave so much of this stuff out. It's just been kind of a long project. This is a secondary or tertiary car for the client. So he hasn't been in a big hurry, but we're back here in the spring, but he's very excited to get this car back. He's really only ever driven it as a manual once, just around the parking lot here during business hours. And that was when it was missing on cylinder 2 quite badly. So he's gonna be just thrilled to be able to drive it up the Pacific Coast Highway tomorrow to his home. We had a wide array of warning lights on the dash after we got this thing started. Check engine, brake, ABS, DSC, active steering. That's another thing. This car has active steering as an 04 545. He's retrofit the xenon headlights. I think it did come with parking sensors. The only factory option this car has per the VIN code, believe it or not, in 2004, is adaptive cruise control. Who knew? You could not get adaptive cruise control on an E60 M5. You could not get it on an F10 M5, but they put it on the 545. Does it work? No, but it's there. And that begs the question, why doesn't it work? It's only a handful of codes left in this car, and I've worked with the client and we've agreed that those are extremely low priority or just cost prohibitive codes that are not important to running and using and enjoying this car. One of them is the sensor initialization. Independent shops can't really do this without crazy expensive, we're talking $20,000 per tool, or maybe it was 40. I don't remember, just very prohibitive tooling to be able to calibrate that sensor. So we took the car to the dealer and let them give a quote on it. And the quote was going to be, I think it was 7 or 9 hours labor to calibrate a sensor. And you know what a BMW labor rate is, especially here in Southern California. So that's something we're going to omit. My next thought was, what if we just code it out? Instead of active cruise control, just take it out of the vehicle order and, you know, change the options in NCS and the different modules. And that can be done, but you have to get a new stock. Software versions have to change. It would be a major pain. So we decided to leave that for now and maybe explore other options for later. But anyways, after enough diagnosis, we were able to get every single light off. Multiple sensors had been damaged during engine removal for the rebuild and then engine installation. So we had a bad servo on the steering rack. We had a level sensor in a reservoir that was not plugged in or functional. We had to make some wiring repairs. I don't remember exactly what the ABS or the DSC issue is, but that's been repaired. And we're going to start it up, take a listen. This is a mostly cold start. We just changed the oil one more time before the customer takes the car. We've got some fun coding in here. How weird is this to see a actual key on an E60? And it's got one of my favorite features, which is the comfort start. So you just turn it once and it starts right up. In other words, you don't have to actually twist and keep twisting the key for it to start. So we close the door, nice little soft close action. I'm gonna go ahead and put the seat belt on, turn the e-brake off, and look at that. A perfectly crisp, clean dashboard, a smooth idle, a smooth as heck engine. It's got a Dynon throttle body on there. I think it has a Dynon intake. We're going to get a look under there in a moment. There's what the active cruise control stock looks like. And will the camera work on the HUD? Yes, it will. And that is coded to feature the turn signals on there as well, which is a neat feature. Something I code on these manual conversions is the speed to be represented on the dashboard there, which is kind of a nice touch. So we'll just do a quick little parking lot drive here tonight. Clutch in this car feels incredible. It's heavier than the M5 and it has more resistance, even though the M5 conversions we use a brand new slave cylinder and all new lines on bleed them out the same way. So this has the M5 diff, which I believe is a 3.63, 3.73. It's a really high ratio diff. And this being the standard transmission for the, or standard 6-speed transmission for the N62, kind of makes for an interesting gear ratio. 80 miles an hour is about 3,400 RPM in this car, 3,350, something in that nature. But that also means there's no reason to downshift. You lay into this thing at all over 60 miles an hour and it just walks. So we're in first gear right now. It's not an unusable ratio at all. It's just certainly a higher gear ratio than what would have been included from factory. The factory differential in this car with a manual was probably something in the 2.9 to 3.1 ratio range. So we did an AUC sensor, we did the front control arms, alignment, smog, the fuel filter work I mentioned before. Pretty much everything needed, like recharge the AC system, kind of all of the associated jobs that have to happen after a car has an engine rebuild. And that was like a third throttle. This thing is, the V8 is a completely different beast to the V10. The V10 makes crazy horsepower at equally crazy high RPMs, whereas the V8, we're gonna get them lined up here, the V8 tends to make very strong low-end torque. Not the high horsepower, but the low-end torque is more usable. So it looks side by side. Obviously the front bumpers are different. M does do a lot to the car. This 545 is on a set of Bilstein, I want to say PSS 9 coilovers. 9 times out of 10 I ride in a car with coilovers and get out, my back hurts and I can barely move and it's awful. They just ride like a skateboard down a set of stairs. This is not that at all. It's a very comfortable ride, yet you do feel the benefit over the factory springs when you get into a corner a little bit. You ask it to dance a little bit and it does, at least a little bit more than it would have with the factory suspension, without beating the hell out of you while driving it, and I like that. We've done only the most basic of cleanup on this car. I think the customer's going to put it through a compound and polish and probably some sort of wax or sealant. And should we see it again, it's only going to look better than this. And I've put a couple 100 miles on this car per customer request to really iron out all the bugs, wait for the codes to come up, see what the codes are, diagnose, repair. We had to do the AUC sensor and charge up the AC, which I didn't notice until it got hot and the compressor wouldn't kick on because the engine shop didn't rebuild it. So stuff like that. It's a lot of time and a lot of work and certainly an investment, but this car has a new life now. It's a completely different car than when it rolled out of the factory 18 years ago. We get a look and listen to the N62, and we're happy to report that this one is not burning any amounts of oil, coolant, power steering fluid, any of that. We've got fresh fluids everywhere, bled that breaks out. I'm sorry for being all over the place. This is just months of kind of a level 2 priority for us in the shop most of the time. With everything else we have going on. But we've got kind of a carbon fiber air passage here. I don't think that's factory. Excuse my relative lack of knowledge on these. I've only serviced a few 545 and 550s, again, mostly specializing in the M5. But we've got the Dynon carbon fiber strut tower brace up top there, Dynon throttle body I mentioned before, the air box, of course the air filter. We've got fresh fluids in this thing. And something I like about this engine over the S85 V10 is that it has a dipstick. I don't understand for the life of me why BMW thought it was a good idea to get rid of a good old-fashioned mechanical way to check the oil. What if you don't know what's in it? You're going to start it up and let it get warm before you ask it if it has oil in it? That's a horrendous idea. All right, let's lock it up for the night. Not get it too dusty before it's delivered tomorrow. It'll be the last drive from here to San Clemente is about 45 minutes through Camp Pendleton over on California 5 North. I hope it's a pretty morning. Picking up another car for a client, so it works out for me to do it that way. I'm gonna put it right in here. I'll get one more clip and let you guys get off to your weekend. So in addition to the comfort start, we did some fun programming on the car. I think if I hit the lock button twice, or do I hold it? We hold the lock button, we get the mirrors to fold. That's a neat feature. We unlock once, they unfold. Obviously we can start to put the windows down with the key like such, and we can also put the windows up holding the lock button. And looking at the car for another minute here, I'm seeing a few things I missed, and I know there's going to be more, like I said, but there's Lci Tail Lights. Those are the March 2007 plus 08 model year plus tail lights with the LEDs. Interestingly enough, these are still the original pre-LCI headlights. The LCI lights have kind of a crystallized little fins on the side and slightly different halo design, but these are the adaptive lights, or the active lights, whatever it's called, when they swivel left and right on the road. I love that feature on the E60. So it's got that. I think this was not a navigation car initially. So somebody, the owner, went to the extreme trouble of retrofitting an entire navigation system. And this is the Triple C 06 through what, 08 or 09 nav system, fully functional. He retrofits Sirius XM. We've had that activated and working in here, sounding excellent with the Logic 7 sound system. It's just a car that kind of pulls out all the stops. And as I'm saying all this, I'm thinking like the owner of this vehicle has essentially built a V8 M5, right? It has an M5 interior. It has all the options and the goodies and the luxury things and all the materials and stuff. It's a manual with, instead of an S85, kind of an equally unreliable N62. So you get the benefit of low-end torque, and I'm sure slightly better fuel economy than the V10. That's going to wrap up this video. I just wanted the opportunity to share a one-of-one car and kind of walk you through some of what we've done to it. And it's been a journey, and I know the owner's super, super happy to get it, and he's going to love his experience driving up the PCH tomorrow. I'll talk to you guys in the next E39 Source video. Take care. I almost forgot one of the absolute coolest things. Look at this. It has, we've all seen the E39 phone. Did you know there was an E60 phone? Did you know I don't know how to open it? There it is. It's a Motorola. Can't work anymore, unfortunately, but it's here, and it clips into the snap-in box in the console.